Borderline personality disorder is a mental health condition that's often characterized by intense emotions, unstable relationships, and oftentimes a distorted sense of self. I think it's kind of helpful to talk a little bit about what that looks like in the day-to-day life. So when we're looking at like the intense emotions, we're really seeing that like a person with borderline personality disorder tends to have big emotional reactions or sensitivities to that are a little disproportionate to like what the trigger might be, and that's what it might look like on the outside, but for the person experiencing it, the emotions exist in such a big way, whether it's in your body, it's not just in your thoughts in your head. So we really see a lot of emotional reactivity, and then that becomes coupled with some of the other symptoms that we see, especially in relationships, and that can be any type of relationship, whether it's within the family system, romantic partnerships, or even friendships. um, and what that instability can look like is oscillating between really valuing your partner and putting them on a pedestal, and thinking they're the best thing that ever happened, to having a very quick switch, whether triggered or not, to totally devaluing that person. So we see this oscillation from feeling really connected to your partner to really disconnected from your partner. And a lot of times that comes out in a way where we're displacing our big emotions. And sometimes we're even teasing out whether the trigger is real or perceived. But to the person experiencing borderline personality disorder, it definitely feels like a real emotional reason to disconnect. And we'll see, you sometimes hear about relationships that have really high highs and really low lows. And it's this cyclical pattern that's really hard to get out of and not healthy for anybody in the relationship. Um, we also see that people with borderline personality disorder tend to become attached very quickly to other people. It makes them feel safe and connected, even if we haven't necessarily vetted that person to see that we're a good match, or to see that you have the skills that really create a healthy dynamic in a relationship. And once you are attached to somebody with those attachment wounds, it's really hard to get out of that cycle. So that's what we're seeing when we look at unstable relationships. And all of that can also come up in any type of relationship, which is important to know. Some of the other pieces that we see with borderline personality disorder are the unstable sense of self and sometimes a distorted like view of yourself. So that can sometimes just feel like you don't know who you are, what you're doing, how you want to live your life. And it leaves a lot of room to live in a way that's misaligned with your values and your morals. And we can start to mirror other people to make them like us. And we're not really staying aligned with ourselves. It could look like, I know, changing your appearance out of nowhere, starting a whole new life somewhere because the emotions of existing where you are just too much to tolerate. And you think if you remove yourself completely and permanently, things will get better. But that's not necessarily the case. We also see some of the other things that we see with this are just an extreme fear of abandonment and rejection that can lead to self-sabotage, and lead to feelings of just loneliness and worthlessness. But the other big marker that we definitely see when we're looking diagnostically at borderline personality disorder would be impulsive behaviors. And that can be anything from going on major spending sprees, even if you don't necessarily have the funds to do so, having periods of binge eating, also partaking in drugs and alcohol in a way that is unsafe. And that leads all the way up to one of the final criteria. A lot of times, the emotional experiences of borderline are so intense that we see individuals start to engage in self-harming and suicidal behaviors, because it's just a response to how you experience the stress. And it's important to know that even in all of this, it's never intentional. There's usually no intentionality behind wanting to disconnect from your partner or react in an emotional way. It's really just the way that the mind and body is processing the relationship, the stress, or the environment.